Well, I'm pleased to be joined now by a great friend of the program, Federalist elections correspondent Brianna Lyman. Brianna, thanks so much for coming back on the U.S. Report here. And I want to start with some news from the world of sport. And that is that biological men who have transitioned to become women will no longer be able to compete in women's events in the Olympics and Paralympics. This was part of a much bigger election promise by President Trump, and it seems now that this has come to fruition for Team USA. Tell us about it.
Yeah, President Trump campaigned heavily on ensuring that the basic science was going to be followed. And I think we've seen a cultural shift in the United States where people are finally rejecting the far left ideology that says that men can become women and women can become men. And so now we see the Paralympics basically saying that you must be a biological female to compete on a women's sports team. And it's not a novel idea, but it's 2025, so it's being taken as one.
Absolutely right. Hey, also, another fascinating story that I think people aren't paying enough attention to is what's happening in some of these cities. We've talked about Zohran Mamdani in New York, but now in Minneapolis, there's another guy called Omar Fateh. He has just claimed the Democrat Party's endorsement to run for mayor. Now, he is a socialist. He has gotten huge support from the Somali community, while the establishment Democrats in the state have apparently been complaining, even ironically, about electronic voting after his success in this race. Are we starting to see a trend here? Mamdani, this fellow in Minneapolis, sees sort of socialists coming in from migrant populations. What does this portend for the Democrat Party if they're the future?
Well, I think the big problem here that you just briefly touched on is Mamdani is from Uganda. Fateh is born in Washington, but his family is from Somalia. He's spoken in ways that makes it seem like he believes Somalia is his home country. We are importing people from the third world and expecting them to comport with the Republican values, small r Republican values of the founding, but they're not. Instead, they're importing ideals that are completely antithetical to the founding. So socialism is the complete opposite of natural rights, right? The founders created a government simply because they said government is there to secure natural rights. Someone like Fateh and Mamdani says, no, government is there to tell you what kind of rights the government decides to give you. So I think this should be a wake-up call that when you import people from countries that have fundamentally different systems of governments and cultures, they're not going to become good citizens or good members or good, patrons of a republic society. So we better get a handle on it now before it's too late.
Brianna, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's so important. Culture absolutely matters when you decide your migration policies, and this really has huge implications. Hey, something else, just a little bit of fun. I mentioned this at the top of the show, but, we all love that show, The View, kind of as a hate watch. Well, apparently it's announced they've gone on a hiatus, and who could blame them given this is what they were dishing up this week?
The thing about him is that he's so jealous of Obama because Obama is everything that he is not.
Yeah.
Trim. Smart. Handsome.
Happily married.
And can sing Al Green's song, Let's Stay Together, better than Al Green.
Yeah.
And Trump cannot stand it. It's driving him crazy.
Brianna, what do you make of the loss of this great, hard-hitting, deep, investigative, fair and balanced journalistic panel show?
To be fair, The View typically does take a hiatus, usually around July 4th, but it's only a few days. So I'm curious because they haven't really said much about what this new hiatus would be. So I'm curious if it's going to be longer. But I unfortunately had to watch The View for quite a while at my old job just to mock these people, to pull these clips. And I can tell you that losing The View will actually be a net positive for the entire society because all they do is indoctrinate their audience with the most toxic ideology and worldview you could think of, especially when you have someone like Alyssa Farah Griffin who pretends to be a conservative and really she's just a shill for the Democratic Party. So getting them all off air is actually going to make America better, make America great again.
Well, make the airwaves great again. Hey, but by the way, before I let you go, I need to ask you, too, about a piece you've written at the Federalist.com about the new dignity bill, which has been pushed that could serve, you say, as a launch pad for eventually granting citizenship to hundreds of thousands of foreign nationals in the U.S. This is exactly what Donald Trump ran against. Please tell us more about what's going on here.
Yeah, this is a piece of legislation that was reintroduced. It's being co-sponsored by a Republican Republican representative. Sponsored by 10 other Republicans. And what it would do is it says to millions of illegal aliens, hey, if you came here before 2020 and you just pay a few $1,000s, you can stay, but we're not going to give you citizenship. We're just going to give you a twilight legal status. And there's two big problems with that. First and foremost, it reduces the idea of citizenship. These people come here. They don't want the responsibilities associated with citizenship, but they want the benefits of living here and having legal status. Unacceptable. And two, Republicans should not fall into the leftist trap that empathy must override the rule of law. That is what the left believes, right? That you can't get rid of these immigrants because they've lived here for a few years, whatever. That is not the way you conduct a functioning country.
That's exactly right. And, you know, it's not empathy, it's toxic empathy. Brianna Lyman, thank you so much for joining me as always.